Welcome back to Locked In, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about FSU's new quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, and this guy could be something very special at Florida State, but it could also be something that's very detrimental to their success this year, going into the year with playoff hopes, especially after the way last season ended. I know, Rev, you're a big Florida State fan. What do you have to say about this guy?
So yes, I am a massive FSU fan, and for the last few years, I've not had to really worry about quarterback play, especially the last two. With of course Jordan Travis, everybody knew his name this year, but prior to this year, he was a little bit of an unknown guy, and he had an interesting story. And I probably will want to do a video on just him someday, just because of my appreciation for him. But JT is gone, and we now enter into a new era. We were not sure after the season was over who our quarterback was going to be. With the news of Tate Rodemaker transferring, which he did not transfer until we were for sure targeting a portal quarterback. So the timing of that was unfortunate. And I really do like Tate Rodemaker. I wish him the best at Southern Miss, where he's committed to. And then, of course, we have Brock Glenn, a true freshman, who a couple, only 7, 8 months ago was at his own high school prom. He played in the Georgia game, and he also played in the ACC championship game and had a rough time of it for the most part, although he did complete some good passes, especially in the bowl game. And then our other quarterback in the room would be Luke Krummenhoek. He is a new incoming freshman. He enrolled early, so he actually got to practice with the team early. And he's from Benedictine in Savannah, Georgia, where I'm actually originally from. Not Benedictine, but in that area. And he's a highly touted recruit, 4 or 5 star guy, depending on what website you're looking at. He was rated number 3, I think, overall by the end of it all. And so he's obviously a big talent. So we knew we had a couple guys. We didn't know who it was going to be for the 2024 season. Enter DJ Uiagalelei. And he has history with FSU because he was Clemson's quarterback for 3 years. He played in some limited games 2020 season when Trevor Lawrence was hurt for a few games. And then also he then took the starting job in 21 and 22, struggled in 21 for the most part. 22, he had a much better season, still transferred to Oregon State where he was in the 2023 season, and had a similar season as far as stats go to his 2022 Clemson years, but the narrative did kind of change for him. He had a lot more positive just media presence, and just a lot more good things were said about him in this last season. I think he kind of reinvented himself. At least that was what was said about him at Oregon State, despite the similar seasons. I mean, obviously, Oregon State had a pretty good year. They had an opportunity to have a really great year, and in a few big games against very good teams, they weren't able to pull those out. So they ended up 8-5. But at one point in the season, I think they were 8-1, 8-2. So they had a good season with him at the helm. And as an FSU fan, I can't say that I was just buzzing with excitement when I heard the news that we landed him. Uh, you know, he there is a narrative that surrounds him. Again, this last year, he kind of got away from that. And I'm very happy for that, because I don't think that it was his fault that Clemson was having so many offensive issues. That he got saddled with a lot of the blame for Clemson's offensive struggles. I don't necessarily throw that all on him. I don't throw much of that on him. I think they had a lot of other issues going on with their play calling, just who their offensive coordinator was, how their offense had been structured when he was the quarterback there after Lawrence was gone. So I think there's way more of a nuanced conversation with that. But despite him changing the narrative of around him, I still wasn't massively excited. And I think that's in two parts. Just he's not the same quarterback that FSU has been used to for the last few years. I mean, and nobody is. To me, J. Trav is 101. I mean, he's more like Caleb Williams type of guy who just makes crazy plays, and just does amazing things that Houdini kind of magic on the field. And DJ is not that guy. He is more of a typical quarterback, but there are some massive strengths to him that I think he does even have over JT. I think he has a stronger arm for the most part. We're going to look at some film and we're going to see a weakness that he has in his arm, and I think the same thing probably could have been said about JT in some aspects too. So, there might be some similarities there of where a weakness is. And then also DJ is not the most agile guy. He's a big dude, but he can run the ball really effectively. So as far as excitement going into next year, I guess I have some trepidation. I have some it's hopefulness, not necessarily full excitement, because I don't know how this pans out. I feel as if it could go, like Chance said in the opener, it could go great, and he could have a revitalization even more than Oregon State was as far as even just stats. I think he could have a really, really good year. I think he'll be working with a better team overall. I think FSU is just a better team than Oregon State. Sorry, Beaver fans, if there are any who are watching this. Uh, there is an element that I feel with the weapons that he will have access to, and Norvell calling the plays with Atkins helping out with that, and in a probably a better offensive line, I feel like he has an opportunity to do really, really, really well. At the same time, though, I could see this going poorly because he doesn't match with what FSU has done over the last few years. He doesn't necessarily match the full offensive scheme, and that's going to have to change with a new quarterback. So, you know, it could go both ways. So I'm still hesitant to say that I'm excited for him coming into FSU and wearing the garnet and gold. But I do, we're going to look at the film here, and I do want to be hopeful about him because I feel like there is a lot of upside, and it could go very well. So let's go ahead and get into some of the film. We'll see some ups and downs from DJ.
Yeah, play one. I think we're gonna see DJ just making plays like DJ does. This guy's known just to make crazy plays, and he's very good on his feet. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he can get it done. 3rd and 7, got to have a first down. And also, a lot of this film is going to be against very good teams
Yep.
when they play them. So, I mean, you're looking at Florida State fans, you're going to say, y'all want to be college football playoff contenders. Well, here's who you're going to have to face people like this Washington team, if not better. So I mean, you're going to be looking at film against them to compare. How good is DJ really? Instead of watching someone like San Jose State or someone like that they play. So I mean, you're going to see him be really athletic. He can throw very good to the outside. He's also extending the play with his feet right here. Stepping up into the pocket, rolling out left, keeping his eyes downfield, always looking to pass first and just dropping it right into his receiver. So I mean, he does a very good job using his feet to make plays. Anything you'd like to say about that, Rev?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a reiteration or an echo, but you do like the way where where his eyes are. His eyes are always downfield, like you mentioned. He's scanning the field, looking at his different options back there, and obviously we don't see that back copy where you can see what the DBs and receivers are doing. But he's looking around at his different options while maneuvering the pocket, so he's not having to take his concentration away from what his receivers are doing while he's trying to buy himself more time. He's just naturally doing that. That I guess you see that happen a lot, but you take that for granted when you're watching, better, good to better to great quarterback play. Not everybody can do that. So, that is good to see that he has good pocket presence, and he also has a keen eye for what's going on downfield. It's a really good throw. I mean, he makes a great drop right there for 7 to get right before 7 gets hit. So, it's a good play, and I think you'll see a lot of that from him. Routes that start from the inside and go out, like corner routes, out routes, things like that. He can hit those at a very high rate. His completion percentage this year was just under 60%. So, and we'll have examples of kind of why that is, because when he throws in the middle of the field is when he starts to get pretty inaccurate.
And
But
you're gonna see that right here,
right,
actually. It's 4th and 10. 11 seconds left. They're trying to get in field goal situation, and Washington is playing to the sticks. We've talked about their defense and their DBs being very good. So they're playing up on the line where hey, these guys need to get right here. They need to get right here at this line to get this first down to be able to kick this field goal to keep the drive going. Well, you know what? We're going to stand there and we're going to be in the way of that. And you know what they do? And DJ looks right at them and I mean, absolutely just misses the middle linebacker across the field, tips it up, and Jabbar Muhammad just picks it off of a tip. I mean, that's the thing. You got to keep your eyes downfield. And I mean, DJ's a big guy. I'm pretty sure he's like 6'5", isn't he, Rev?
Yeah, 6'3" or 6'4", I think, but he's a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy. So I mean, it's not like he's too small to see
6'4".
downfield. Yeah, 6'4". I mean, he can see downfield fine. And there's a referee there. There's his guy there. There's Washington's linebacker out there. So I mean, he's throwing across a congested middle of the field, and his ball is coming down. Usually you'll see him try to float it over, but his ball is coming right down, vertically, like towards the ground. So the linebacker is able to tip it, and it don't even look like the ball would have been that good placed. It might have been intercepted even if it wasn't tipped right here.
I don't know
But
about that.
I mean, maybe because I mean 24 is coming down, and you have uh another linebacker coming down.
Two
So I
two
mean,
probably gets killed.
that's a death ball right there.
So I think this is probably a completion early. I think it hits his hands, but then whether or not two holds on to the ball after he gets killed by a safety would be a question mark. I want to just the reason why I keep going back here. I'm looking at his eyes. So from this back copy that you see right here, his eyes are shifted this direction to where his receiver is coming from. He sees that receiver on the route, and now he shifts his eyes to the middle where he's going to throw.
And you
So
can see his hat
yep.
at the
So
bottom.
one thing I guess there's two options here. He has no idea that the middle linebacker is sitting in his spot and he's sitting in his lane. He just doesn't see him because his eyes are to the right the whole way. And then once he identifies the guy he wants to throw to, then he kind of shifts to where he's going to throw the ball. And that's where he releases it. And then 42 makes a really good play across. And I mean, credit to 42. This is a great play. He stops himself in his tracks. He puts his hand up and he gets a hand on it. So you're not always going to see this happen, but this is what we're talking about with like the danger of him throwing across the middle. The fact that you didn't recognize that the mic was kind of sitting back and waiting on something like this, that's the problem. You need to always identify, hey, there's going to be somebody spying. There's going to be sitting waiting to rob me if I throw across this middle. Where's that going to be? The other option that you don't see it with his eyes here, but I have no idea how good his peripheral vision might be, is that you see another white jersey that's coming down low because he does angle this ball higher. 42 has to, get all the way up with the full extension to try and knock this away. So he might see him, and based on momentum, he's thinking, hey, 42 is going to run himself down. I'm going to be able to throw this right above him and right far enough away where he can't make a play and my guy can. So even if you're giving that benefit of the doubt, he still doesn't throw it further, like far enough or high enough to get away from that guy in the middle. So either one of those, like, this is still a mistake. And I think that's obviously then it's a tip ball and Muhammad makes a really good, interception. It doesn't necessarily matter because it's at the end of the half. But then now we're into the second half. Oregon State has the ball back. We're only, 49 seconds into this, and we're going to see something really similar.
Just right across the middle of the field, just absolutely misses the guy.
Muhammad
It's
again.
Muhammad again. And I think a lot of this has to do with when you're a quarterback reading a field and you're having to throw it to the middle of the field, you're looking at the dead center of the field. So you're having to read the entire field.
Yep.
See, on the other half, you could if you're throwing to the left side of the field, you're not having to read the right side of the field and the middle. You're just having to read that left side of the field. Same for the other side of, like, if you're throwing to the right side of the field. You're only having to read that one side, but when you're throwing to the middle, you have to kind of read the entire field. So it's a lot harder to throw them balls across the middle. And I think that's where he gets into trouble, having to read the entire field instead of just staying to one side. Because you'll notice when he throws it up the seam, or even to the outside, he does a good job. But when it's kind of across the middle, he just can't make his like he doesn't have that full vision of the entire field. Whether it's just him targeting one guy and keeping his eyes, locked in on one guy and tunnel vision, I don't know, but he just doesn't do a good job at throwing across the middle of the field.
So one of the things with the last play and this play that I do want to point out as a positive is he stands in the pocket and he's waiting on his guy, and he's willing to take that hit standing in and making throws. He doesn't panic. And now, would I, maybe like him to try and create a little bit more time for himself here? Sure. But he does have the ability. He's a big guy. Like we talked about, he's 6'4", he weighs 250 pounds. So he's a large guy standing back there. He can take those hits. So he knows that about himself. He's a tree standing back there. As far as just the ability to take the hit, and he will sit and he'll hit it, or he'll get hit and he'll throw it. And I really like that, because I would rather that than a guy who panics from the first moment of pressure and just doesn't make any throws and tries to scramble constantly because he doesn't allow himself that extra second to throw that ball and release it. So I like that. But what Chance is talking about with reading the field, we have made a discussion in the past about elite quarterbacks, good, great, and elite. And DJ is for sure not elite. And I think the question is he good or is he great? And as of right now, I would put him in the good category, not the great category. But he can make great throws. He has a great arm. He just doesn't have great eyes and great reading and reaction time. So when we talk about elite quarterbacks, like there's just a switch in their head where they're seeing everything. And while it might only be for a second, 2 seconds they have to like scan, read, and make a throw, they're able to do it as if the time was slowing down for them, because they're just able to process so quickly and they know everything that's going on. And that's a very special type of quarterback. And then you have the great ones who can't quite do that at that speed, but they still make really good decisions. They're a little bit less effective. They might make a couple mistakes here or there, but in general, you see them making good decisions a lot and reading the field really well. And then good quarterbacks that are a step under that they don't make the right read all the time, or they're slower with their reads and they're not able to process everything that's going around them. So they get a little bit more locked in. And that's the problem that he's got, is that he locks into receivers or locks into spots, and he just kind of almost as if he forgets that there are other people in this play that might affect where I'm throwing the ball. Just because I can't see them doesn't mean they're not going to be there when this ball gets to my spot where I'm throwing to. And I wish we had the back copy of this one so I could kind of see what he's seeing and why he thinks this is open. I can't remember. I did watch this game, but it's been a bit, so I can't remember here. I think that it's a little bit of a throw behind the receiver, and then the Mohammed makes a really good break on the ball. He's behind. He's more downfield than the receiver is, and he sees what happens, and he breaks on it. So it's a good play by him, and he is a great DB. I don't think anybody would argue that. So again, this is top talent that he is going against, but Florida State plays some very good teams, and then you talk about trying to get ACC championship game and into the playoff. You're going to play great teams, so you have to be able to play well against great teams in order to move on and beat these teams. So I think that's why the film is against good teams, because that's what matters here.
Yeah, and here you'll see him thrown to the outside, and it's a lot easier for him. I mean, he stands in the pocket, takes a hit,
Yeah,
makes a great throw. It's just he's thrown to the outside. So, I mean, his head, if you look at his head and the strap on his helmet, you'll see the strap just pointed towards that side the entire time. Ever since the snap, his head is right there to the right side. So, I mean, it's these kind of little one read,
1-2.
throw
Yep.
into a spot, just them type of plays that he's really good at. It's just when you give him time, he doesn't really have the processing ability to throw it across the entire
Right.
field. Now, what he can make up for that by doing is by using his feet and his legs. He's very mobile for how big he is,
And
and
whew,
it shows. So this guy, he's like a spark plug, I guess you'd say. In big moments, if you need a run, this dude can run. And he's very good at it. I mean, he stayed in a very close game with Washington, with a worse team, and I'd say worse coaching than
for
Washington
sure.
had.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's a tight game, and he's partially the reason that they was in it. Now, I will say one thing that they do at Oregon State that I don't think that they'll do a lot at Florida State is their under center play action passing. You know, Oregon State likes to run the ball, I'd say 65% of the time. That's not really how it is at Florida State. I'd say that Florida State likes to pass it a little bit more. They're probably more balanced than anything.
Yeah, we're balanced, I'd say.
And, you know, they're a lot out of the shotgun. They might go under center once or twice, but they're mainly out of shotgun, you know, them 3, 5, and 7 step drops from the quarterback, you know, trying to make a pass or, you know, throw a screen, whatever. But when you look at Oregon State's film, you'll see a lot of under center play action throws, things of that nature, not a lot of shotgun drops. And when they're in shotgun, you'll see DJ just have a designed QB run a lot. So, I mean, that is something to think about if you're a Florida State fan. Just seeing how you're going to adapt DJ to your offense is
So
what I'd say.
speaking to that, with J Trav behind center, we're in shotgun a lot. A lot of quarterback read stuff, especially 2 years ago. We didn't run that as much this year because we were trying to protect him. And then when we needed it, like the Duke game, for example, I know everybody wants to point at Riley Leonard went down, and that's why we won that game. False. Why we won that game, or why we were struggling in that game, at least on offense, is because we were not letting Jordan run the ball at all. So any type of quarterback read was not there because we just weren't allowing him to run. You could tell he was actually getting really frustrated because he had a lot of moments where he wanted to pull it and he couldn't. And then the moment that he got the go, and you can see it happen in the game, the moment he got the go to start running the football, we scored 21 points immediately. So just as an aside, that's what happened in that game. But when Jordan's back there, they're in shotgun a lot more than there are in center, and they're typically doing, if they're going to do a drop, it's a 3-step drop, and he's scanning the whole field. But the other thing that you had with JT is a lot of rollout passes because he was so dang good on his feet. Uh, I don't know what you'll see or how Norvell and Adkins adapt the offense here with DJ. He can move and he can move in the pocket, but we've had a lot of instances and plays here where he's standing in there. You know, he's shifting around a little bit. We saw that first play where he does create space for himself and keeps his eyes downfield, which I really like. But a lot of times he stands in there, so he's going to have like true drop back so he can read the part of the field that he's on to. So with that, does that mean that Norvell and Atkins start adding more under center stuff, more play action game? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it'll be, do we adapt the offense to DJ's play style and what he likes the most, or does DJ try to adapt to what FSU does? And does he struggle with that? Does he do well with that? All of that remains to be seen. It's kind of speculation stuff. But going back to this play, this guy's a tank. And a lot of quarterbacks, they get hit by 42 right here and they're folding down. They might still fall over into this first down, possibly, because 42 doesn't hit with his arm. He doesn't wrap with his arms. But instead, he stays up on his feet. He honestly looks like he just fall down over there, and he's a really good balance. And he might not be the most agile person, but he still can make great plays like that one. That is just a heck of a spin move. I mean, that's just, you can't say anything else other than that. And this is a great play that he made, and he kept them in this game. And I mean, they had an opportunity to, right here, 22-20. They had an opportunity to go down and beat Washington and knock them out of any kind of conversation and playoff and everything else in the future of the season. And they weren't able to get it done. But he made a lot of plays that kept them in a tight game against a really good team. And again, like right there,
3rd and 3, gotta have it fourth quarter late in the game.
down on your own end.
And I mean, that's a far throw.
It is.
I mean, that's to the sideline from the opposite hash. So I mean, that's like the farthest throw, like horizontally, you could have.
So he's on his 3-step drop again. He does that little bounce drop, and he stands in and gets hit. I think all but one of these plays, he stands in the pocket, throws the ball, and then gets hit. So he's willing to do that.
And he can take the hits.
He can take the hit. So that's the other thing too, is typically you don't want to see Florida State fans that are watching this that have been fans for a while. You will recall James Blackman. People call him the Slim Reaper because he had a really great deep ball. And he weighed like 170 pounds, and he got destroyed because we had a terrible offensive line. And he found himself on the ground a whole lot. And actually, that guy was tough as nails because he got hit to the ground constantly. And we were just always worried that he was going to break because of how small he was. DJ is a lot bigger. He's 250. He's 6'4". He's like a linebacker, like a big old linebacker type that can throw the ball very well. So he can take those hits. So you don't have to worry about him going down. Same thing like with JT. JT was about 200 pounds and super agile. He reminds you kind of Lamar Jackson in the way that he moved and how he kind of played. But you were always worried that if he took the wrong kind of hit, that he'd go out. And that actually is what happened. So with DJ, way different style of play, but when he does run the ball or when he does stand and take hits, he's a lot more durable. He's more prototypical guy, old style prototypical. I think the prototypical is changing a little bit as we're evolving. But again, he has a good arm. He has really good ability. It's the full field processing, the full field reading that he struggles with the most. So from play calling perspective, Norvell and Atkins, you got to realize that, and you're going to have to cater your play calling and your scheme to protect what he's weak at. Because you could say that you could try and make that better, but after 4 years of the same thing, that's his weak spot. And yeah, that can improve, but you're not going to just see him. More than likely, you're not going to just see him all of a sudden be able to read and scan a whole field, because that's just not how that works. So play calling will have to assist him on that. Chance put this in there just to have a Clemson play so we can see what he did a couple of years ago. And it's a similar, to point out that the issue has been a thing for him for multiple years. It's not just like a thing that it had last year. It was also why he was at Clemson. And also Chance is a good, big time Georgia fan, so he just likes to show them making good plays. It's a heck of a play too by number 29. I mean, that's a great break on the ball. DJ just was not paying attention. I don't even know if he really thought that 29 could get to that. I thought, hey, get to this ball quickly and it doesn't matter. I don't really know. Like, he just didn't see him. 29, great break and gone.
Yeah, I mean, great play by Chris Smith there. I mean, he's a league guy now. But I mean, at the same time, you got to think that was what 3-4 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah.
3 years ago. So I mean, if that's still not fixed,
correct, it's not just going to fix now.
Will it ever be fixed? Like, I don't know if you can fix that. You just kind of have to
play around
mold your style to play around it, like Rev said. This is going to be the last play, and like I mentioned earlier, the play action out of under center. We'll see it a lot against a very good Oregon team right here, running the ball. You'll see that end crash down, and you'll see two options right here. One's a touchdown in the back of the end zone. All you got to do is throw it in there, and then one is right down here in the flats. And he actually makes the riskier throw, in my opinion. But, at least it still ran for a touchdown. I don't necessarily think it was the wrong read right there, but it was it is what it is. It scored. He had 2 touchdowns. You could probably accredit that to the end being in his face and him just throwing that into the flats. But
yeah,
you could also say, well, hey, it was probably designed where he was going to the flats. So I mean, I don't know, but if Florida State picks up on something from his film, that's use the play action under center to your advantage and, throw to the outside of the field. I think we got one more play against a good Arizona team as well.
Yeah, just on this play, what you talked about with that end being in his face, that end hasn't even really got close to him before he's already made the decision that he's throwing. I mean, this is 5-6 yard separation. He's already going to that guy. So you know that he's going there. I think partially, if you're giving, again, and this is not the first time that I've done this, if you're giving the benefit of the doubt, if he's reading through his first guy and he's looking into the end zone, he sees a safety or a corner, he sees a DB in his way, in his other, the other route's way. So it's in his passing lane. So now that throw has to be further over the top, so it's not contested at all. And it's just it's a harder throw to make for him where he's sitting, especially if you look at his feet. He's already kind of consigned himself to this throw. If he's going to throw that deep ball, he's going to need to be more set. and actually have a little bit more oomph into the throw to get that thing over into the end zone. So to me, this is more of this ball was going to the spot, and it still ended up working out. He still scored, so it was fine. He took the easier of the two in for himself. And hey, like my guy has an angle on this. I know he's a speedster. He can get there, and he made it. So you still like that, and like Chance talked about, that's something that you would hope that Florida State tries to implement more of. So you play into that skill set of his. Again, prototypical quarterback. You see a lot of play action stuff with pro type offenses.
So the most of us know that Arizona had a good team this year.
Yes, they
So
did.
so this says something a lot right here. I mean, that's a top throw. I mean, again, they're on the right hash. So, I mean, he's only looking at one side of the field, and it's man coverage. Pretty easy read right here. Just throws it inside, up the seams. I mean, it's a good ball. So, I mean, he can throw good balls, especially in man coverage right there. I mean, he can place in tight windows. It's just, how consistent is he going to do it and how consistent is he going to make the right read when he has to?
Right. So you look at this play. You obviously have 13 that's coming across the field here, and he's open. But the play was already set to go to the single side. I think our guy can beat their guy across, and I think I have the arm and the ability to make that throw, and he does. And I think that's the upside with him is when he knows where he's going with the ball. And I guess this could be said with other quarterbacks, but his arm talent and his ability to get the ball where it needs to go is great. He really can do that well. And when you make simple reads for him, 1-2, 1-2 reads is what I call them. You have one option, you got two options, and you pull it. And they're very quick. You have keys that you learn to read when you're playing quarterback. When you're doing 1-2 reads, those keys become a lot simpler for you. And you're looking at spacing, and you're also pre-snap. You're looking at where the defenses are aligned, so you know what's my one, what's my two. So you identify what your one and your two is based on pre-snap stuff, and then also based on which side of the ball, which side of the field you're going to be looking at. And then it's all right. During or post snap during the actual play, then you're looking at where the defenses move to and like where your guys are in the spacing between them. And then it's just about you making the play. So if you like the one, you hit the one. If you don't, you look to the two for a second. If it's there, you hit it. If it's not, you pull it, or you hit a check down. Sometimes check downs are into that too. But if you do a lot of that, I think he will have a lot of success. And you have the talent at FSU to be able to do that really, really effectively on top of a really good run game, or what should be a really good run game. Norvell and Atkins have done a really good job of overhauling the offensive line. And we had a much better offensive line this year than we've had probably since 2015, maybe even 2014. So, and that's consistently stayed now. We expect to have a better offensive line. So your run game should be efficient. Obviously, we lose Trey Benson to the draft. But we still have Toafili coming back, and then we have a couple Cam from he's also from Georgia, I believe. He's a recruit that came in this year. He's a big time get, and we're really high on him. And then we have a transfer from Penn State that didn't really play last year because he was hurt, but he I believe is still going to be a factor. And we have a couple other guys too. So we have a running back room that should have some success. We have a good offensive line, or we should. So then it's going to be down to can he make the plays that he needs to in big moments against the big teams. We have I think a underrated dark horse in Georgia Tech this year to start the season off. I actually think Georgia Tech will be pretty good this coming season. They gave Georgia fits last year at the end of the season, and they ended up doing pretty decently. That game is actually being played in Dublin, Ireland, in week 0 to start the college football season, which is very interesting. So I think you have a tougher game than what some people may realize. And then of course you have your staples like Florida and Miami. You never know what happens with those big rival games. You have Clemson, who's looking to bounce off of it was a disappointing beginning of their season, and then they had a really good stretch there at the end, so they're looking to try and get back on top. And then of course North Carolina and a few others. I think we play 6 out of the top 8 ACC schools this coming season, and a pretty good SMU team that has joined the ACC. They had a really good year last year with a very high powered offense. And then of course the biggest one that we have, Notre Dame. So we play Notre Dame near the end of the season. So those kind of games can he make the plays required to beat those kinds of teams? They had Oregon State had a really good season this year, or not really good, but a good season this year, and they played a lot of tough teams. But there were moments where he hurt his team in a major way, or just couldn't complete some balls that you'd like to see him complete across the middle of the field, or in your their end of the games where he doesn't quite come in clutch, and he doesn't upgrade himself from good to great. And I think that that's kind of what I'm looking for here. I'm hoping that he transitions from a good quarterback to a great one with the weapons and the scheme that FSU can put together around him. And I'm hopeful that he's going to have a good year at FSU. Again, I don't really know, and I think as we get into spring ball and camp and all that kind of stuff, we'll do deep dives, and not just FSU, but all the big teams going into next season, and then we'll see kind of what has changed for each team. But I am very hopeful, and I do hope that him personally, I guess just for him specifically, that he can have a really good year, not only just from a narrative standpoint, but also from a stat standpoint, to kind of get himself like back up near the top of the quarterback level, which is where he was when he first got to Clemson. Just from personal, I like the guy. I want him to do well, especially with all the stuff that surrounded him over the last couple seasons. But again, not sure which way I lean on. Is it more likely that he'll do great or that he won't? I'm not going to give that prediction yet because I really don't know. And it's harder too when you're talking about a team that I absolutely adore. And I guess one little extra thing that I'll close with is FSU fans. We've been we've been more spoiled than we realize. I know some people had plenty of knocks on JT even over the last 2 years where he's been great. I think there were still some people who were very negative with him, just a small pocket. But after losing him, I think there's going to be a major appreciation for what he's done over the last 2 years. And we've been spoiled by the kind of magic that he's created on the field. We don't have that now. So it's going to be an adjustment to go from him to anybody else. Doesn't matter who it's going to be. But I think the major looking forward into the future hope is that DJ has a good year and is a good mentor and a good quarterback to be a stopgap until we get to what I think most people would be the favorite to take the starting job in 2025, which is Luke Kermanhawk, maybe Brock Glenn. But I think that everybody is a lot more hopeful and a lot higher on what Luke can do. And he seems to be an elite level guy. We don't know yet because we haven't seen him play college ball. But I think that the hope is that DJ can sustain for a year, keep us in the ACC conversation, maybe win an ACC championship, maybe get into the playoffs. I don't think there's any expectations that this FSU team is going to be competing for a national championship the way that we had expectations for them this last season, which they were competing for one. So again, grain of salt, and FSU fans don't have too high of expectations with this. We don't know what we're going to get going into next season. And we did just go from a guy who got us out of the grave with JT and had a Heisman finalist level year, 2 years really. And now we're going to go to a new guy. So just temper your expectations, hope for something good, expect for something maybe not, who knows? And we'll see as we get along how FSU is going to look for 2024.
Yeah, with that being said, I think Florida State will be a very, you know, hot topic on the list that we're going to talk about coming up for this next year because, they're a team that comes out of the ACC and they're probably your top contending team as of now. But there might be some teams that can creep in on them and take that spot if DJ doesn't perform like people think that he should. By watching his highlights from this past year against teams that aren't nearly as good as Arizona per se or Washington or Oregon. So I mean, there's a lot of questions for that. So I think basically the big thing is, wait till spring before, going out and having any overblown reactions. But I think DJ's a good get, especially with who you could get at the time with transfer quarterbacks, and you're wanting somebody to come in and being able to go and compete now for a championship and in the playoffs, DJ's probably a top 5 get, I'd have to say. And I think it was a really good pickup, at least for a gap year. With that being said, for me and Rev, stay locked in.